Hello, my name is Mae Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. Who is the awakening woman? She's the woman who's seeking a greater possibility in her reality and looking for solutions. She knows being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If she can transform herself, she can change the world. Her Conversations will introduce you to talented women who will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. They share their stories and explain how they are in service to the world. So let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. This week's episode is just me, Mae Whittick, and I thought as I'd now passed the 50 episode mark, it would be a great opportunity to reflect on what those 50 episodes have taught me and how I feel that Her Conversations has changed my life, because I really do feel that it has. Starting and backtracking from right to the beginning of the idea of Her was the acronym itself came to me about 5 years ago or so, and I may have mentioned this in other episodes, when I had just shot a music video for a song I'd written called Attraction, and I was watching the music video back. I was watching one of the first edits back, and I was quite surprised at what I saw. The person that I saw represented in the video was such an elevated image of myself. It was so far removed from who I was and how I was feeling at the time that it just came out that she just looked like her. And initially it was, when I was writing the blog post, it was just her in capital letters against her in lowercase letters when I was writing all about it. And then I think during that point in time, the idea for higher energetic resonance came together, and it was through working with a mentor that I had at the time that she was prompting me and inspiring me to look a little bit further into what that could actually mean. And what I came up with, and what I'm still working on, and I promise will be finished by this year because I have declared it on social media, was that Her was going to be the title of a book. Her is the title of a book that I'm working on, which is called Becoming Her, Becoming Higher Energetic Resonance. And within that, there are 3 aspects. And I refer to these 3 aspects every time I do the voiceover in the beginning of each episode. And it's split into spirituality, sensuality, and soul. And initially, soul was actually style, and I've kind of changed it in the past year, I feel, or just before I actually launched Her Conversations podcast. It felt that soul was a better fit than style. And what they actually represent, in order to look a little bit deeper into those 3 aspects, are, for myself, when I was talking about and writing about how I've become Her, how I've become higher energetic resonance, the spirituality aspect is the work and the understanding of my spiritual life and my spiritual development and what that has meant. I came from a background of religion, of Christian religion. There are elements of it that I still very much resonate with, in terms of there being a greater force that is of the universe, in terms of there being a greater force that is our higher selves, a generating force. But I'm less and less inclined to refer to God in itself as an external male figure that lives in the clouds, and that is a very fearful God. And the way that I had initially been taught about religion was that God was in the sky, God was a God to be feared, and he would smite you, and we are not worthy to eat the crumbs off his table, which is one of the prayers that used to be said prior to communion. And interestingly, also this week, I've really been digging into the teachings of an evangelist preacher from, I believe his heyday was like the 70s and the 80s and early 90s, Reverend Ike. And Reverend Ike is someone that I've always just had a kind of like passing understanding of. And this week, I just felt that I really needed to kind of look at his teachings a little bit more. And what's been really interesting in finding out about the Reverend Ike is Reverend Ike spoke about, in particular, abundance and our mindset around abundance. And he spoke very much directly to the black community within America at the time, who had come mostly from the way that religion had been taught. And one of the bigger teachings within religion is it holds poverty or austerity, at least, as something to be very proud of. It's, the one of the ones would be the love of money is the root of all evil, and it's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And Reverend Ike's teachings were very much in line with Neville Goddard's teachings, who they both looked at the Bible and instead of taking it literally, saw it more as a symbolic representation of man/woman and their mind and their ability to actually create the life that they wanted to. So for that reason, then, wanting to have abundance, wanting to have nice things, material things in the world, wanting to prosper, wanting to succeed in whatever way that meant, was something that was written in the book, and he would take passages out of the book, sometimes ones that were very much contradictory to the way that the Bible had been understood at that point, and would actually put it in a way that actually put the power back into the people who were following him, going into his church, even watching videos of him and seeing the way that he taught his own particular church. He made a definite decision to make sure that his church looked opulent. So he would kind of gold plate the wall, gold leaf the walls, and have kind of thrones and chalices. And everyone, if you watch some of the telecasts on YouTube, you can say that everyone was wearing their Sunday best and then some. Everyone looked dressed to the nines. And also he would hire out great spaces, great halls, great arenas, and then also broadcast his messages on TV. Needless to say, that kind of teaching didn't really go down well with the vast majority of people. So he got very much challenged, and the majority of his challenge was, the majority of the challenges against him, or the accusations against him, was that he was all about the money and he was fleecing working class people of their money. And yet he wasn't really doing that. And just going back and understanding where the thoughts that he had and the way that he taught the Bible and the way that he led his congregation and anybody else who was into and resonated with the word that he was teaching, you can see now it's very much what the majority of people are putting into the new thought, the new age way of thinking. So, for instance, one of the men that I used to look very deeply into his work, somebody like Bob Proctor, has very much cited him, people like Michael Beckwith, and also, like, who's another one, like T. Harv Eker is another name, who all use that kind of mindset of you can create your life from within yourself. He was very much about the mind. He was very much about God is you, as opposed to someone up there in the sky. He was also about having heaven and hell as an experience that you can have in the now, as opposed to waiting until you die and then going left or right with your destiny. His thought was very much about heaven is your creation in terms of your thought. And listening back to his teachings and lining it up against the way that I got taught and my religion and the way that religion was taught to me, I could see very much how that would create blockages within my life, and my thoughts and my beliefs and my situations around abundance has been something that I've been very focused on working on, because I can see that things will get to a certain point and then they won't go any further. So it's very much about there being some sort of limit on my own thinking, because when we look out in the world, when I look out in the world, I can see there is plenty of everything, and there's more to share and spare if we look at the world as an abundant place. Even when I'm thinking about something which may seem very basic, as my hair, and I'm out in Bali, so the weather is very much different than I would be experiencing if I'd spent a winter in the UK, which has a great effect on the way that my hair and my nails grow. And I've seen how the abundance has actually turned itself into just my physical appearance. I think you heard a cow there. So that in itself has been a very clear and unmistakable example of abundance, and the fact that something can grow from something that wouldn't grow, because as little as maybe a couple of years ago, it was very difficult for me to grow my hair even 1 centimetre. I couldn't really work out why it was. I think there was a lot of things going on and stress and everything like that. And it took me 3 or 4 years to get to the point where it would be long enough for me to even put in extensions. And for me, that is one of my... I can look in the mirror every day and I can see that something can come from where they look like it wasn't going to grow, because for years my hair just wouldn't grow. So the spirituality aspect has been me just redefining what that means to myself, redefining my connection to God, the universe, spirit, and seeing that now it's created a situation and an understanding where I can feel that I'm actually in control of my life, and I'm actually connected to the power, and as a result, as a connection and as a son of God, daughter of God, part of the universe, I'm then able to, if I get my flow right, if I get my focus correct, then create whatever it is that I want to in my life. And this has been a great undertaking, because my conditioning, my religious conditioning, was the complete opposite of that. And everything was praying and begging and waiting and hoping and wishing, as opposed to feeling that I'm actually part of the process. So the spirituality aspect is very much about that. And when I bring women onto the podcast, I'm always wanting them to kind of speak to one of those areas, even though I don't necessarily make it known that they're one or the other. It's always part of that. So that's where the spirituality piece comes in. And the next part is sensuality. Sensuality means to me things like my physical body, things like abundance as well. So also, it would be sensuality in terms of sensuality, relationships, anything that's to do with the physical realm, the physical body. And so I've been working on those areas, and I've been also, that's where that part in the book comes from as well, is how I then started to shift my mindset around all of these things. Have I been really tapping into the sensuality aspect of myself? Do I understand what it means to have the relationship that I desire? Am I able to create that? Is there a block again about those things? So bringing women on who can speak to those areas and who can understand. Recently I've had like Nahanda, and last year I had Chelsea, who were very much about motherhood and coming at motherhood and coming to the process of motherhood from a slightly wider perspective, a more spiritual perspective, being even very deliberate about choosing to be a mother. So it's not just kind of waking up and having a happy accident, but calling on the soul of your child prior to even conceiving of the child, and then going into intercourse with your partner to create that child in a very specific and conscious way. And that to me is very fascinating. Talking about motherhood and thinking about things like that, who knows where I'm going to be. It depends what I believe, I suppose. You know, as somebody who is now coming up to late 40s. Yeah, I'll be 47 my next birthday. I had to think about that. When I'm thinking about those things in terms of societal beliefs, that is very much something that is pushing the edges of safety or reliability in terms of what my body will be able to produce. But then as that belief is becoming kind of a little bit more fluid, there are more parents, more women who are choosing to conceive later on in life, simply because they probably put their career first, or life gets busy and you don't meet the partner that you feel you would want to create a family with. I can tick all of those boxes, I think. So who knows? It would be a beautiful thing to be a mother, I believe. It's just how, you know, I'm looking to speak to somebody who will really talk about the relationships on a very conscious way as well. There are people that I would like to speak to, and also if you're listening to this and you are aware of anybody who you feel has got a really good take on the relationships in terms of creating that conscious relationship, really drop me a line, DM me on Instagram or email me. It's info@carolmaewhittick.com, because I'd be really interested in speaking to a woman at the moment, because I'm keeping it all female on the podcast for the time being, and just finding out their thoughts of it. I'm aware of there being ways that are almost quite basic in their thought of it, but I believe there's a deeper conversation and thought and approach to be had, and I would like to find somebody who is creating that kind of awareness and that kind of teaching out there. So yeah, sensuality, relationships, motherhood, physical body as well. As I'm out here, one of the things that I'm out in Bali, one of the things that I've made a very conscious effort to do is to really look at the way that I was treating myself on a physical level. The past year and a half, I'd even say 2 years, I've had many different challenges in life. And one of the ways I, quote unquote, dealt with it was by eating in a way that wasn't necessarily healthy. Not that I wasn't eating healthily, I'd be eating healthy foods, but I wasn't eating in a way that was nourishing to the body all the time. Sometimes I'd be eating for reasons because emotionally I'd be eating, and especially over the last year and a half, I gained more weight than I was comfortable with being in my body. And I wasn't able to find a way to maneuver and find space or maybe even peace within having a body. None of my clothes fitted me. I didn't necessarily really want to go out and buy loads of new stuff because, you know, I had a lot of things that I really enjoyed wearing, and I enjoyed the way that I looked and felt within those clothes. So to then feel that I was like outsizing myself and not finding a way to move, and when I say move, I mean it in the most simpler way, is I wasn't able to walk in a way that I felt comfortable. I wasn't used to that as somebody who's previously been an athlete and a competing athlete, to then be in a situation where you can't find your center almost, and that's how I felt. I felt very disorientated, and within my body. So, and also the extra weight very much represented to me how I was kind of how I was not dealing with certain things, and that, you know, that extra poundage, that extra weight, I could see was a result of going down a road that I didn't really want to go down. So it was very important to me also to start to really gather myself together and to find my own fitness and to find my own center within my body. And that's another thing that I've been able to start to do and start to feel successfully strong, and that athletic sensuality within my body has started to return, and the confidence within myself has returned. And it's not been without having to release all of the things. So where I would normally have eaten when certain things would happen or certain emotions would start to surface, I chose not to do that. I chose to actually face whatever was starting to arise at any point. And usually in times before, when I would start to eat in that way and start to try and suppress and kind of obliterate anything that I was feeling, it would usually be because there would be some sort of fear within me that felt that if I sat in that space, in that emotional space for any length of time, I would be in danger. It was unsafe to do so. It would be too stressful, too scary to deal with it. What I found is, although it can be uncomfortable sometimes to actually deal with the things that start to surface, it doesn't last for very long. It could be a day or 2 days or so that those feelings and that awareness has come up, and I've had to sit with it and really deal with it and start to clear it out. And then I'm on the other side of it, and it's just something that's, oh, okay, and it's gone, really. So it's not, until you actually start to do it, and you do it a couple of times, then yeah, it can take a moment to realize that you're not in danger. It's just something that needs to be addressed, and constantly batten it down with kind of carbs and sugar, which were my drugs of choice, just meant that it never got dealt with as it should have done. And as a result, I feel not only physically lighter, but mentally lighter by such a stretch. It's unbelievable. And I'm just able then to know that the next time something comes up, what it is, and sit with it and go through it. So those are some of the points on sensuality. And soul is very much about using your life experiences, using the things that have happened to you, good, bad, indifferent, whatever they may be, and then turning them into some sort of offering and service back into the world. So it could be that you use all of your experiences to clear out any repetitive patterns and so forth, and what you choose to do is just really raise really conscious human beings, and that in itself is a job that I don't yet know how to do, but you know that we can see all around us. We know either within our own experiences and our own families or the world at large that when we don't deal with our stuff, and then we're invariably going to pass it on to others, and then that gets even more compounded if that happens to be your children. So it can be that, it can be going into service in terms of being like coaches, therapists. It could be people who create businesses that offer services from any aspect of things. And that's kind of where I've got to. The soul is her in itself, really. Looking at what her has created for me, it's very interestingly, when the idea first came up for me to create her, I just didn't realize how much it would then start to carry me on and carry me through. Particularly last year when the summer period for me was especially difficult. And one thing I promised to myself, it was that I was going to keep the podcast going no matter what. And it meant that sometimes I was coming in late in the evening, sleeping, and then waking myself up in the middle of the night to be able to have been rested enough to do all the things that come with the podcast and the way that I produce it. And it kept me focused while everything else was falling apart. And looking at what 2018 was for me, the year 2018, was it, in the midst of it, I wouldn't fancy going through one of those years anytime soon. But it created a lot of space. It moved many things out of the way that needed to go. I was stuck in the way that I was living. I was stuck in the way that I was working, and they weren't giving me the space to expand. And I just needed to destroy them. So that's what I did. And then at the end of the year, when I just had enough of not knowing left or right, is when I made the decision to come out to Bali. And then initially, I had just booked to be here for 2 months. So I should have moved back, or my plane ticket, my return ticket back to the UK was on the 17th of January. And that morning, I sat and just really looked at the ticket and decided whether I was going to go back. I knew that going back meant that I'd be going back to London in winter, in the middle of July, in the middle of January rather. So most people are not going to be in the best of headspaces in mid-January. And I knew that I wasn't done here. I needed to stay out in here and also spend a little bit more time actually becoming a little bit more involved in what happens in Ubud, because I'd spent the previous couple of months just keeping it really on the down low. I was more in contact with people online than I was with anyone within the community here. And I knew that I wanted to actually start to get to know exactly what was happening in Ubud, apart from just meeting the one or two people that I'd known before. So that's what I've done with the past month. It's been stepping out and going into different areas that are less touristy, areas that are populated by long-term expats, and speaking to them, speaking to women who are doing certain kinds of work here, and women who have been here, speaking also to people who are here. And there's a lot of conversation about personal journey and personal healing. I found this when I went to India, and I'm finding it even more so here in Ubud, that there are people who are here on a longer term, especially the longer term people are here because they really want to examine the way that they're living their lives and the way that the society that they come from, and most of them are from English-speaking countries, so that will be like Britain, America, Australia, and they're very much looking at how their lives up to the point that they came here or made the decision to go travelling or be long-term travellers has just not necessarily fully satisfied their something within them. You can't even really call what it is. So there's a lot of conversation to be had that way, and it's interesting because you're able to sit down and have a conversation and speak to everybody about how they've noticed how their lives to date has bred a certain personality with them, and then they felt that it's not working and they want to move on from that. So that's what's also been interesting, being out here and speaking more on that, because these are not conversations that are had in the city where I come from. It's not something that I was speaking to or speaking about on a regular enough basis. It was a conversation that I wanted to have more, but it's not everybody is looking at their lives in that way. And it's hard when you're in a busy city and your focus is on getting the money and paying the bills and just keeping everything moving. There can be a lot of the time very little time for you to reflect on whether you're on your life path or what a life path is, or why you feel disconnected, or why you're just not happy, or you haven't got the relationship, or why you're not feeling that you're thriving or contributing to society in a certain way, and then why you can see it when you're far away. And traveling and being here has taught me the things that had nothing to do with my location, and some of them were. I mean, the change of location has taken a very big stress away from me, because I was just having to compromise on so many levels, because I was trying to start a business and also live in one of the most expensive cities on the face of the planet. So that was difficult. What I've learned from being out here is that it just brings to focus the things that I need to focus on, the things that are actually the issues, the main issues. You can't escape them. No, so it's not that you can run away and find yourself. It's just you come away from the noise, and the stuff that you need to deal with comes and slaps you in the face, and then you choose to do with it what you choose to do with it. But it's been great being out here. My thoughts now are, what's next for me? I have another month on this round of visa to be out here. I'd really like to do some more travelling. There's a couple of spots that I want to go to across the world now, and do some learning, do some studying as well. There's decisions that I've made that I know that I definitely want to do. The Kundalini teacher training, I really feel that that's part of what I want to do. Also, with the Her Life Academy, which I've been working on, and things have slowed down a little bit this month because I managed to get a bout of food poisoning, which just lasted a lot longer than I would have liked. So that was hard, because it kind of just really affected my focus. And also it brought into focus again that, you know, I'm out here on my own and being ill. That's hard. But also it's very much character building. So I came out the other side of that, but there were a couple of weeks where I wasn't really focused on that project. So it's hopefully still going to be February, because there isn't that much to do. I've been slowly adding to it, and it's been looking back on the 50 episodes, or the 50 or so episodes that I've done of Her Conversations. The way that I feel about it has been very much a sense of achievement and pride, and not, you know, I'm aware that I don't give myself enough credit for the work that I have done and what I've achieved. 50 episodes is a lot of work, and to have kept on with it, even though earlier this time last year there was a gap when there was this kind of first transition in my life, and I didn't put anything out for a couple of months. I don't want that to happen again. So what that 50 episodes has shown me is that focus and consistency has actually brought into line a level of expertise about podcasting, about how I sound as well. That's been interesting, hearing myself back. And also personally, how I've grown is looking at, if I can create this, I can create other things. It's given me a sense of confidence also when I start to approach people who are not within my circle, or my circle once removed. When I reach out to people who are women who are completely unconnected, at least I can direct them to my website. I can show that I've been doing this for a little while, so this is something that is only going to build on from here. And that's one of the things, one of the main things. And when I look back on those episodes and I can kind of scroll up and down and see all that I've created, I get a great sense of satisfaction. Also, in speaking to so many different women who, in their own ways, have followed the call of their own heart and their own intuition and their own gifts, and found a way to start to create a service and a living out of that. That in itself has been very much inspiring to me. All of these women are higher energetic resonance women, and it just reinforces that this is something that I need to keep doing, not only just for myself, but also for the women that I want to speak to give them a platform, because I want her to grow so that the platform becomes more prominent, so that anybody who is featured on here benefits as a result as well. And also because I'm every now and again getting more messages from women across the world who are listening to her conversations and are getting something out of it. So it's been a great education for me, as well as just learning how to create a podcast and a format and create a brand and allow the vision to be bigger than just these three letters that I had when I did a music video so many years ago. So it's also just something to say to anybody who is listening, who has a little idea. I would just go for it. You know, we live in a world where it is, if this is the way that you want to put your work out, but we live in a world that is set up in a way that if you want to start to find people who would appreciate your work and resonate with your work, it's very easy to create your content, be it audio, be it visual, be it just the written word, and place it online, and then start to spread it and build a community of like-minded souls and people who appreciate you and want you to win. So that in itself is as good a reason as any, because without the internet, it would be... I don't know how I would do this. It would be something I'd have to wait on, I suppose. It would just be a book. And the book that inspired me when I found out a little bit more of it was the Shapeshifters book from Michelle Jamal that I got introduced to. So that's all that I have for this episode, really. It was just to catch up and just talking about where I am with 50 episodes and what Her is about and how I see it growing, and just the inspiration that all of the women have been to me, just the inspiration that all of the listeners have been to me, that have contacted me and have let me know that they're getting some sort of benefit and value out of Her conversations. And as a result, I'm working on the Her Life Academy, and having been out here and seen all the other possibilities that there are in terms of destination work, this is something that is definitely in the future for Her. So thank you very much for listening. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to my website, which is carolmaewhittick.com. On Instagram at Kazmic, Cazmick, and I'm on Her Life Academy's Instagram, which is at Her Life Academy. So thank you for listening, and until next week, take care. Bye.